Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to show you how to fix one of these. In this case this is my Jeep SRT Grand Cherokee. I'm going to be fixing one of those, which is the front engine splash guard. This is the fix that I've performed. This piece blew out quite recently, and in short, trying to get this replaced in Australia at an economical cost is a nightmare. This is going to cost $500 or $600 bucks from a scrapyard, or well over $2,000 if I was going to buy new and get stuff shipped from the States. And I fixed that with a bin, some glue and some bolts. I'll show you how I did it. The engine, this splash guard part number is 680-89029AD. So first of all, climb under the front of the vehicle, armed with a couple of ring spanners and a screwdriver. Pop out some of the plastic rivets that hold the base plate to the rest of the vehicle. Undo a bunch of the bolts. Take out this metal bracket here, and that piece then will just literally drop out. Now once you've got that piece out, in my case I've already fixed this obviously, but the original piece of plastic here had blown out on a slow drive somewhere, and like I said, trying to get this replaced with a new part from Australia is very expensive, so I thought I'd give it a crack with the bin, as I showed you earlier. So what I've done is I've used a piece of paper to trace out the outline of that part, and I'll show you that now. So taking 2 or 3 bits of A4 paper, sellotaped up together, if you literally, so in the original piece of paper this would go up like this. If you rub your thumb or a finger along the edge of the plastic seam here, you'll basically set a small fold or crease mark into the paper, which you can then deepen up with some pencil. And in my case, I then went and cut that out. Now, just bear in mind that without this piece here, this plastic is actually quite flexible. So to make sure that you've cut your template the correct way, you can either get a rough idea of the lines using the other piece, like so, bearing in mind in this case there's a cutout here that doesn't exist over here, but you can get a rough outline and make sure that your template is the right size and not too small or not too large. What I've then done is taken my bin. So this I've picked up from Bunnings, and you know, of all the bins that are in our local Bunnings, this was more of a heavy duty type of plastic, so thicker. This is probably 3 or 4 millimeters deep, so it's a bit more rigid. And then I've used a Dremel to cut out a side panel. Obviously, I'll show you the template. Take your template to your hardware store and make sure that you buy a bin with a wide enough or deep enough panel. So in this case I've got 3 attempts to get it right, 2 sides, and if all else fails, a bottom. Now instead of using paper as I did here, you can also use card, of course. I ended up not using the card because I found that it was too hard to get a nice clean cut on the edges, so I stayed with the paper. And effectively, having cut out a panel from my bin, I've then sellotaped my stencil to the bin, cut around it with a jigsaw, to get a rough line, and then really just use the jigsaw to finesse the edges down, and then alternately a bit of sandpaper to get those edges nice and flat and square. Okay, so whilst you're shaving the sides and getting it all to fit to the space that you're going to be fitting the piece to, the other thing you can do is flip the piece over and compare it to the piece that might still be in the car, again just to make sure it's all the right size. So once you're happy with the piece and the shape of the piece, the next thing to do is to drill some holes. I'll show you how to do that now. So first of all, we're going to flip this entire piece over. Okay, so again, this is the piece I've just fixed, and this is the other side. And you'll notice here that there are these plastic spot welds. Now this is important. It was very difficult to find glue to weld polypropylene, which is what this material is made of. So what we're going to do, what I did, was we're going to drill through each of these holes on the side to be repaired. Okay. Now these are the bolts that I've purchased. So these are 20mm long bolts with a rounded head, just to make them slightly more aerodynamic, and also these washers. So using a drill, use a drill that's around about the same size, ideally slightly smaller than the thickness of the bolt, because what we'll do is screw through the plastic just to make a tighter finish. So in this case, I've drilled holes in the 4 positions there and the 5 positions here, and do that from the bottom. When you've got this piece on a nice flat surface with your repair patch nicely fitted underneath, loose fitted, but obviously in the right position. Drill straight through, very easy, and then you'll have a whole set of holes that you can use to bolt up to. As I mentioned earlier, gluing polypropylene is very difficult. It's just not a plastic that likes to be glued. So whether you're using PVC, pipe glue or epoxy, they'll all be pretty rubbish. Now I found this again at my local Bunnings. It's Sellys Power Grip. And as you can see here by the label, it outperforms super glue on polypropylene and polyethylene. So I've given this a whirl. This glue is pretty good. In essence, you clean up your piece of plastic. In my case, I gave it a light sand just to score the surfaces. Gave it a clean with some wax and grease remover. And then this pen here uses a primer, so you just rub this on both the parts to be glued, and with the glue itself you just apply that to one of the pieces to be mated together. So primer on both sides, glue on one, fix it together, and then in my case I immediately started screwing the bolts through. So the bolt with a washer through the plastic, and then underneath a washer with a nut, tightened up, not particularly tight, but tight enough to allow the glue to go off. And in my case, what I also did was put some thread locker on the threads, just in case any vibrations would have a tendency to shake these nuts loose. I doubt that would be the case, but I did that anyway. So with that done, in this case here now, we've got all the bolts screwed in nice and tight on both sides. The glue needs to go off for about 30 minutes, and in effect it's now ready to go back on the car. Now what I'll be also thinking of doing is, whilst this side isn't broken, I'm thinking of actually effectively doing the same repair, but as you can see here, this is lifting. So because I drive so slowly, what I'm a bit concerned about is that this is going to blow off next. So what I might do is, again, following the same routine, flip this piece over, drill through those plastic spot welds. I don't know whether this would then come free. I don't think it is actually glued, but what I'll then do is put another set of bolts and washers on. If nothing else, both sides then match. Again, not that you can see that from underneath the car. And then also this is probably not going to go anywhere anytime soon. So there you go, guys. For the cost of a $30 bin and $15 in screws and washers and some glue, I've saved myself something in the region of $1,900 here in Australia at least. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. See you next time. Cheers.